各位現場朋友，大家好！我哋活動即將開始，請大家將手提電話調至到靜音模式。我們這一次的活動以英語進行，請把手機電話調到靜音模式，謝謝。我們現場設有這個普通話的傳譯服務，大家可以用我們接收器調到普通話的頻道1號頻道。The event is about to begin. Please set your mobile phone to the silent or vibration mode. The sessions will be conducted in English with simultaneous interpretations into Mandarin. If you have a receiver, please turn it on and select the Mandarin channel 1. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 我们现场朋友，大家好，掌声欢迎大家出席我们的活动。Let's give a round of applause to all the guests of honor to attend our event. Distinguished guests and friends, welcome to the Macao Museum of Art for the special lecture. I'm here, Helena Almeida, Princess and Residence. I'm your MC of today, Ronnie Chan. Thank you. And today's lecture is titled Helena Almeida and Dialogues on Contemporary Art. It begins with the chief curator Delfim Sardo's presentations on Helena Almeida. This is followed by the reflections on the resonance sections by co-curator. The sections conducted with an open conversations among the curators, artists, and the public discussions across the cultural perspectives, creative thinking, and media innovations in contemporary art. First of all, now, may we invite to welcome the chief curator of the exhibition. Let's pick a round of applause. Professor Delfim Sardo. Professor Sardo is a renowned art critic and curator from Portugal with extensive experience in contemporary art and curatorial practice. He has worked closely with Helena Almeida and brings deep insight into her artistic philosophy. We welcome Professor Sardo.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So first of all, let me thank you all for coming here in a Saturday, using part of your weekend to hear a little bit more about Helena Almeida. What I'm going to do is like a walk through Helena Almeida's career, her different moments in her artistic path, and it will serve perhaps as an introduction for your visit to the exhibition. I think that if you, after our conversation, if you want to go to the exhibition, the exhibition has 3 videos, and I would invite you to not hesitate and spend some time inside the videos, because they are very revealing of the work of Helena Almeida, and they are very interesting and very emotionally very strong, I think, in my opinion. First, I would like to Thank you. First, I would like to explain a bit the name of the show, because the name of the show makes a direct relation with the presence of Helena Almeida, which can be contradictory to this moment when we are presenting the show, when Helena Almeida is no longer with us. Helena Almeida was born in 1934. She passed away in 2018, and so she's no longer among us. Anyway, we decided to call the show I Am Here. And in a way, this contradiction has to do with the nature or with the essence of the work of Helena Almeida, because everything that Helena Almeida did throughout her life was around this idea of presence, of being present, and sharing her presence with us, with the public and the audience. I'm always very surprised. I still am. I know the work of Helena Almeida for so long. I've worked with her several times. I made several exhibitions with her, and I wrote lots of times about Helena Almeida. And I'm always surprised with something very curious. Helena Almeida, she made work in painting, in drawing, in photography, in installation, and video. And Helena Almeida, she was not very interested in the practice of painting. She didn't make one single photograph throughout her life. She thought that her drawings were completely uninteresting, and she didn't shoot any of the videos that she presents. So there is this paradox of an artist that is a very important artist.
这一个阿伦纳梅达呢，他是在当代艺术很重要的一个艺术家。
Let's say the specificity of each artistic technique, of each artistic practice, were not the center of her work. The center of her work was elsewhere.
他的一个艺术的灵感是取决于外界。
One could say that the center of her work
那么他艺术表达出来的艺术呢，是表演性的艺术。
But it's a performance or a kind of performance
它是一个
that
表演性
nobody saw for real. We only see in the videos
并不是
or
真实
in
的
the photographies. We
在
never
舞台的
seen
表
the
演，而是
performance of
在
Helena Almeida because she
一个在
never
影
did
片
the
上面的一个
performance
表演性的一个
in
艺
front of an
术。
audience.
他从来没有在观众面
And
前
she
表演
didn't
过，
even like performance
他也并不喜欢表演。
type of artistic practice. The only witness to these performances that
唯
Helena
一一
Almeida
个
did
能看到
in
她
her studio
在场
was
表演的
her，
就
husband,
只是她的丈夫。
also an artist and an architect
那她
called
也是
Arturo
一
Rosa,
个阿图
which is
高
a
萨
very，
她丈
important
夫呢也是一个艺术家
character and a very
建
important
筑师。
partner of the artistic process
在
of Helena Almeida,
Helena
as we
Almeida
shall see.
的人生里面，她是很重要的一个人。
So Helena Almeida also being really a very peculiar
那么
and
Helena
interesting
Almeida 呢，
performance artist in
她
European context,
对
she
于
never made
表
a
演性的艺
performance.
术很感兴趣，她也做
So
出很多表演性艺术
it's
的一
really
个作品。
elsewhere that we have to look for
我们
the importance of the work of Helena Almeida.
来看到一些她比较有代表性的一个作品，
The other thing that we must
也是
begin
有这些方面的一个实践
in。our travels through Helena Almeida's work
那我们在
is this idea
感
that
受他创作
Almeida
的
always
作品
photographed herself.
里面大家可以
She
看
was
到
the
他
subject of her photographs.
是从
And
他会
nevertheless,
把自己也拍
She
进他
never
的
made
作品，
self-portraits.
但是他并没
It's
有
different to make
拍自己
self-representation
相貌的
and to make
一个
self-portraits.
作品，但是其他
Self-portraits
的
have
部
to
位来做
do
出一
with
个创作。
an essay, a possibility of grasping something in our intimacy to show to the others.
那么这
Trying to reveal
也是
something
Helena
of
Almeida
the
想要
perhaps hidden
把
psychological determinations of our
一些
being to the others through
他
the
隐
image.
藏的
And
一
we
些
know, we
方面
know
去
that
展露给观众看。
the amount of
或者是心理
writings
方
that
面
were written,
的
for
一些方面。
example, on Van Gogh self-portraits, because everybody has the idea that in Van Gogh self-portraits there is a hidden
好像是
secret about his
梵高
psychology,
的一些作
about
品
his
呢，
possible madness, about his possible
在他的
conflictual
作品里面
relation
可以
to
看
the
到
others
他
in the
心理
world.
的一个变化，他的精神上面的
And
一个变
portraits
化。
or self-portraits, they are
那
always mingled with this
自我
psychological approach to artistic practice.
这个拍照的一个
Even
自拍像
in works
主要是反映心理的一个状态，
about characters,
特别是
that are not
人物方面的
self-portrait, not just
心理，还有
portraits.
他的个性。
about characters about whom we know very little about, like for example,
有时
Mona
候
Lisa
我
and
们对
Gioconda.
于整个
There are
人的心理
writings
状
and
态
writings
是
and
知道
writings
的
about the
东
mystery
西
of
是
the
很少
smile
的
in。Gioconda.
像是
About
蒙罗丽莎
what
也是
was
透
that
过自
woman
画像来
thinking?
去
What
看
was
到
that
他心
woman
理上面的
desiring?
一
What
些
was that
一面
woman?
到底那
What
位
was the
女性
relation of that woman with the painter? And
她
all that
与
speculation, it's
这个
because
创
portraits
作的艺术家
they
他的
have-
关系
they
是
are
什么
like
等等的一些
open possibilities.
隐藏
Open
的一面
possibilities。of windows to, in case of self-portraits, to the artist's soul, to
那
the
么
artist's inner self.
画框也是，
It's
或者是
also
画
not
布
the
本
case
身
with
也是
Helena Almeida. We know
跟
nothing
艺术
about
家
Helena
创
Almeida
作
looking at
它
her
的关系
photos.
是什么呢？就像是我
We
们
see a
最
woman
近探讨的 Helena Almeida 的一
Dressed
些创作理
always
念
in
也
a
是，
very plain
这些
way,
物理上面的创作
with a
跟
black
他本
dress.
人有什么
always
太
with
大
a
关
black
系？
dress.
颜色上面表
Except
达
in
也
the
是。
first images, we'll go through that. And so she has this
No.
black dress, which is her only disguise. In most of the photos,
可以看到
you don't see her expression, you don't see her
黑
face,
色
or when her
颜色
face appears, there's
上面的
not
表达
in the
常会出
expression
现
of
在
the face
他的一些作品上面，你
that you
并
are
没有
drawn
在
to
他
look
的一
at.
些作品上
You
面
look
看到他
elsewhere because the
脸
subject
是长
of
什
the
么样的，
photo,
表
although
情是怎么样的
the。face is there and the presence of the person is there,
尽
the
管有
focus
时候
is
会在作
elsewhere.
品上面看到
It's
他
perhaps in a
的
brush stroke that she's
脸
doing, perhaps in a gesture
也会在
that she's
作品
doing.
的一个
but
影
not in
像里
psychology
面，
of
但
the
是
face.
从来没有表现出他的
And
一
so
个
you have this
心理
also
的一
this
个
other
状况，它是一个
particularity, which
作
is
品的
she makes
融入了
self-portraits
本身的创
that
作
are
的一
not
个本体。
self-portraits, are self-representations that
这个
don't reveal anything
自画像
about Helena Almeida, the artist herself. So she
并
does paintings without
或者是
being a
他作品
painter. She
并没有
does
从来
photographies not being a
从来没有
photographer.
去
She
表
does
现过
performances
他的
not
一个
being
心
a
理。
performer. She does self-portraits not doing self-portraits. So
他有一
there
些
is
有
something
自
really
己的样
interesting
子
about
在里
Helena
面，但
Almeida.
是并没有是一个自画
Perhaps
像
that
的
is
形
this
式来表现心理的一个状态。
continuous deturnement, continuous shift
所以呢，
in
这
the way we
一
look at her
个
work that made me
不同的
so
转变，
interested for so many years in the work
就
of
令
Helena,
我
and
对
that
于
I
他的作品
decided
在这么
to
多年
to
也
do
是
the first
很
exhibitions
感
with her on her
兴
work.
趣的。这也是导致启发了我跟他做的第一个展览的一个
The
原因。
career of Helena Almeida was
他的
not
创
a
作
regular career.
的一个艺术
She was a
生
woman
涯
artist
其实是并不
In
平凡
Portugal,
的。他是在
coming from
葡萄牙
a
的
family
一
of artists,
个
which would be an advantage. Her father
艺术之家
was
出
the
生的，他
sculptor
爸爸呢
Leopoldo
是
Almeida.
雕
Leopoldo
塑
Almeida
家。
was a very important sculptor in the
Almeida.
Portuguese panorama, mostly
他爸爸
in
也
the
是
40s and 50s.
在
20th
40年
century,
代、
1940,
50年代呢
1950,
很重要的
He
一
was very
个
present
雕塑艺术
in
家
the
之
big
一。
public sculpture that was made in Portugal
特别
during
是
the Estado Novo regime,
在
during the period
Sardo
of Salazar.
的一个
So he was a very important sculptor, also very conservative in his artistic language. But let me tell you, one cannot make a drama about it in relation with Helena Almeida, because Helena always had a fantastic relation with her father. And throughout her career, her father was always supportive, even if Helena Almeida was doing a kind of artistic work that was much more close to the avant-gardes, to the second avant-gardes of the 1960s and 1970s, than to anything as classical as the sculptural work that her father was doing. Nevertheless, Leopoldo was always very supportive of Helena Almeida's work. But so, anyhow, she was a woman artist in a very closed country, as Portugal was during the period of the dictatorship. And so the career of Helena Almeida was also very, the rhythm of the career was also very linked to her personal history. So Helena Almeida married in the 50s while she was a student of the Fine Arts School. She had a son and a daughter. And still in the 50s, one in the 50s, the other in 1960. And so she began her career only in 1963, when the kids were a bit more independent. So the classic history of a woman artist that doesn't have the freedom in terms of possibility of management of her own time. And so she began her career a bit late. And in 1964, she had a grant from the Gulbenkian Foundation. For those of you who are not familiar with the Gulbenkian Foundation, the Gulbenkian Foundation was a foundation that appeared in Portugal in 1957, and it was really very important for Portuguese artistic panorama. Let's say almost all the artists that were emerging artists in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they had support from the Gulbenkian Foundation, which was a kind of substitute for the Minister of Cultural Affairs, which didn't exist in Portugal. So Gulbenkian had a determinant role. And among the several artists that had grants from Gulbenkian, like Paulo Rego had a grant from Gulbenkian. Helena Almeida also had a grant from Gulbenkian to go to Paris. The advantage of the grants from Gulbenkian at the time is that people didn't have to go and study in university or make a course anywhere. No, they could decide, I want a grant to go to Paris and see art. That was really important. So she went to Paris and she spent not really a year, a little bit less than a year, seeing art in Paris. And it was very important, the contact that she had with the work of Marcel Duchamp, that she already saw. Marcel Duchamp was still alive in 1964. And was already present in some collections in France. And especially she had a contact with the work of Lucio Fontana. Lucio Fontana was an Italian-Argentinian artist that made an important career during the Second World War. He lived in Italy, and during the Second World War he went to Argentina, and he has been in Argentina since 1940 to 1949. And there in Argentina he began developing a type of work with some other fellow artists that he called spatialism. So a work of art that was connected with space. It could be in sculpture, it could be in painting. He was a sculptor by training, but he began doing a kind of work that was about the relation between the space that is in front of the canvas, so the space where we are, where we live, the real space, the three-dimensional space where we move, and the space of representation, which is the space beyond the surface of the canvas. And this idea of the relation between what is in our real space and what is beyond the surface of the canvas, be it a representation or something much more conceptual. Lucio Fontana used to do what he called in Italian buchi, holes in the canvas, or cuts in the canvas, making a kind of connection between a wound that would connect the real world with the
就
world
意象
of
着
imagination
把
beyond.
这一个
And
虚构
Helena
的想
Almeida
象的
was
世
so
界延
impressed
伸到现实
with
世
that
界
that
之
she
中。
began thinking,
那么
how can I
Helena Almeida 就
transform
说到
my
Fontana 的这
practice
个
in
影响，
painting with
反思
something
他
that
怎么
has
用
this contamination
怎么
between
可以
the idea
重新
of
去
the
构
painting as
造
a
这一
window,
个
being it
绘
in
画本
front,
身，
in our space, or
就
beyond
像这一
the
个
pictorial surface.
窗户
And。so her
那
first
么就
paintings
是他的一个
are
画
these
布创作的一个物理的一个
windows.
材质，
They're windows.
这就是窗户
They。are windows with these curtains.
你看到上
Of
面
course,
有
there
一
is
个
here
窗
a
帘，
reference, an historical reference to the idea
那
of
它
painting
一直
as a window.
是
And so she took it literally,
窗户的一个
transforming the
绘画
painting in a real window. And the
那它的
metaphor
创
of
作
the
上面
window
呢，就把
is even more
绘画
present
变成
because
一
she
个真
shows
实的窗户，
the structure of the painting itself.
它就把
And then
这一
she
个
makes
绘画的一个结构
some
呈现
kind
出
of
来，
humor with the idea of the canvas that goes up
也
and
是
down
带出一个
using
幽
this
默感，
blue.
把这个蓝色体现在这个创
Here
作上面。
she makes a kind of erotic painting.
你看到这是一个
It's a striptease of a
比
painting
较
It's a painting
另外一个感觉
stripping
的一
itself
种创作。
from the clothes of a painting. And the
你看
clothes
到
of a
有一
painting
个一
is
块布在
paint and
挂
canvas.
在这一个窗户
And
上
so she
面
was
作为
playing with
一个
this
画布。
idea of separating the elements of the painting in its components. The canvas, the
那
structure,
它就解构
the
了整
color.
个
And in terms of
创作
color, she
本
was
身，包括
systematically
是这
using
窗
the
户
same
呢，这
color,
个
which
画
was
布等等
blue.
的。
This
那么它的
blue
颜色用
is a
的是
mixture
蓝色，
between
这个蓝色呢，
ultramarine blue and cobalt blue.
是一个介
Lots of
于
people say
群
this
青
is
还
the
有钴
blue
蓝之
used
间的一个
by
蓝色。
Yves Klein, the
很多
French
人觉得这
artist
是
that made this
用了一
this
个法国艺术是这个
use
French Crew 的一个蓝
almost
色。
exclusive use from a certain moment on of a type of
但是
a kind of cobalt blue.
但是
It's
其
not the
实
same
它
blue that Helena
并
Almeida
不是
uses.
同一个蓝色。
The blue from Yves Klein is a blue that
Yves
has
Klein 的
much
蓝
more
色
magenta
是
than the blue from
比
Helena
较
Almeida.
跟
And
Amanda 不一
Helena
样的一
Almeida
个蓝色。
uses this blue, which is a cold color that she
Helena
says that she
Almeida
likes to use it
这
because
蓝色呢是
of
比
the
较冷
temperature
调的
of
蓝
this
色
color. The other color that she will use is a red in some works
你也
later
可以
on.
看到他的其他作品里
And so
面
she
是用
was
红色来
first
作为一个
making
感
paintings
受的一个呈现。
And decomposing paintings, deconstructing
它是
paintings
把
in its different parts.
艺术解构。
At a certain moment, she began doing
那么
three-dimensional paintings. Paintings that
在
have
时间推移底下，他就开始是创作三维的一个艺术。
sometimes using this idea of a box, the
有
things
时
would
候他会
store
用
inside boxes.
一个盒子，把东西
As a matter
放
of
在
fact, I have
盒
been
子
lying to
里
you
面的一
because
个
I
创
said
作。
several times that she used to call this piece
我也
sausage.
常
It's
跟
not
大家
sausage
分享，
that
其
she
实
called.
这
She
个作
called
品
chorizo.
Helena Almeida 叫它香
And
肠
chorizo. So
的为名。
this chorizo, it
那这个
has
里就是香
it
肠
still
的
has a
图文。
connection with the idea of window.
那么其实这个
I
作
don't know,
品
perhaps here it's not used.
跟
But in
窗
Portugal,
户也是有一些
in the houses in
连接的，有一
It
些关
was
系的。
very, very common. In Portugal, we are
在
not a very
葡萄
cold
牙
country, but one freezes in winter
我们
because
在冬
the
天是
houses
很
are
冷的，
not well heated.
因为我们的房子并没有很好的
It's
得
very
到
common
一
that the
个
houses, that people in houses, they have
暖风的
this,
一个
we call it
一些
chorizos, which is this kind of a pillow, a round pillow, like a tube filled with sand, usually it's sand, that we put against the down part of the window for the wind not to come in.
那么我们常会用一
And
些
so she
沙
was
巴
playing
放在
also
窗
here
户的
with that idea.
下缘，
She
因为
was
它
not
这些风
showing a
不会进
window.
入我们的
She was
屋
showing
子里面，来去达
This
到一个保
kind
暖的
of
状况
tool。that is used for the windows to
那
protect
你
from
看
the
到
cold.，
其实
in
那个
other
流出
pieces,
的部分就
the
是
canvas had this kind
一
of
个沙包的
three-dimensional
一个
arms
延
and
伸，
legs.
这个创作
She。also made some three-dimensional
它也会用
installations,
除了
with
这
these
些颜色
structures
以
that
外
were
呢，用黑色，
protuberances that were coming out of the canvas.
也
The thing
会
is,
有时
she's
候
beginning
把
to
物体
make
的
a
创作
connection
本
between
身延伸
the
出
painting
这
as a
个画布
representation
作为一个创
and
作。
the idea of 3 dimensions
那
and of
三维
course
的
the
空间
body.
呢，
And when she began doing
也
paintings with these
是
arms
有关
and
于他
legs,
身体方面的
she
一
was
个艺术创
of
作。
course making
他也
a
会用
painting
手啊、
with
脚啊，
orthotasis.
在他的作品上面有呈现。
Let me explain what an orthotasis is. You have, for example, you have
让我跟大家解释一下 orthotasis 是什么意思。
fake tooth. That is a prosthesis.
像是你有一
This
个
is an orthotasis.
这
It's
就是
something that I
orthotasis，
put in my body
这就是我
that
放在
doesn't
身体上
substitute
面
the，part of my body, but
它并
complements
不
the
是
body
一个
somehow.
像是假牙，
So she
它
began
并不
doing
是我
these
身体的
paintings
一部
with
分，但是它成
orthotasis,
为了我
which
一个人我整个
remembered
人的一个部
arms
分
and。legs. And so they were continuations of the painting to the world of 3 dimensions in making an obvious connection between the painting
那么
and the body,
它
human body.
的一些技术
And suddenly
的
in
这个创作
1969,
呢，就有这
she
样
has an
的一个
idea.
人
She
生。
made this
在
painting, the one
1969
that you
年
see
呢，你看到
on
他
your
有另
left,
外一个艺术的一个创
which
作，
you
有一个名
cannot
单。
see it in the you cannot see it in the image, but it's pink.
那你看到他
And she made these arms
是
in the painting, and she took a photo
这可穿
behind
式
the
的一
painting.
个
So
粉色的画
she
布。
called
那么
it
其实呢，它是的
pink
双倍是从
canvas to wear.
绘画的一个画面本身
And
呢
in
延
this
伸出来
moment, she realized something
那
that
那
she
时候呢，
could
他
become
就
the painting.
有一个想法，就觉得
She
哦，
could
它是可以成为
incorporate
绘
the
画的一个
painting.
本身，
She could fuse with the painting.
它可以跟
And so the painting
整个绘画
was
呢融合在
a
一起。
body.
那整个
It was a physical body.
身体也是
In
绘
this
画
moment,
的一个
then she made that
一个部
photo,
分。
and immediately after, she
那么
made
在
a
这个
series
以
of
后呢，
photos
他
of
就拍摄
herself
了不同
completely
的影
dressed
像，
as a painting.
他就
And you
一
have
系列的
already,
一
you
个
don't have these
摄
two
影的实践里面呢，
photographs
他
in
就
the
是
show
跟
because they were
画布
occupied
呢
in
有一个
other
互动。
exhibitions. But you have a copy of this image that is at
尽
the
管呢，
entrance
其实
of the exhibition.
这
So
两
you
幅的
you
作
have
品
this
并不在
image
我们这一次
also
的
there.
展览当中，但
And
是
it's an image
有一些
that is very
图片大
important
家是
because
可以
from
看
this
到的。
moment on, she realizes
从
that she
这
doesn't
个
need to paint
创作以后呢，
to
他就
make a metaphor
理
of
解
painting. And to
尽
make a
管它
connection
并不
between
是
the painting and the
需要
body.
去绘画的，但是
And
是
she
可以
could
成
put
为
painting
画作的
in motion,
一个部分，
in action.
成为了他
Sometimes
一些
the
行为性的一些
actions
创
are
作。
complete, like say, complex actions that are done around something that you
有一些
still
创
relate
作
with
呢
painting. And this
也
this
会
work,
跟
in this work,
绘画本
she
身呢是有一些关联
goes
的。
around
像是
a
我
painting.
们
So
看到的这一
basically,
个作品
she's
呢，它
making a
是
game between the
跟
idea of behind the painting and in
一
front
个
of the painting.
绘画呢做一个游
Herself
戏，它有时候
Dressed
会在这
in a
个
way
画的
that
后
is
面，
like she's dressed in white and has
她
the
是
hair
穿着
covered with a very thin,
白色的
like
一
she
个
is
上
a
衣，
part of the painting.
然后
curious
呢
thing
有一个
is that
很薄
she's
的
doing
布
photography,
来包裹着她
But
的
she's not
头。
doing one photography. Here, she has
她
done
并不
9
是只是
photographies.
拍了
And these photographies
一
are like
个
the script
一个
for a movie.
照片，但
You
是
see a
是
sequence.
一系
So
列
she's
的照
telling a
片，
story.
从
She's
这
telling
个
us
这一组
the
照片
story.
上面来去
And when
讲
she's
述一
telling us
个
a story,
故事。
it's because she's doing an action and she wants
那
to
为什么
depict
是一个
that
故事
action.
呢？
She wants
是
to
它有
show
连贯性
a
的一个
sequence of
动作，
time with
来去呈
herself.
现时间，
a
来
person.
呈现他自己的
You see the face, but you don't know
一
nothing
个
about
动
this
作
person.
上面的一
Here
些
you
变
still
化。
see how happy she
你
is
可以看到
with the
这个
discovery.
图片
I
上面
can
可以
become a
看到
painting
他
and she's happy.
很开心
It's。almost a naive photo, no?
你可以看到他是很
It's very naive.
天真的
But
一幅
very
照片
revealing of the
但
importance
是
of
很
discovery
真实
that she thinks she did. Here,
的
it
反
begins
映
more,
了他
to be more serious. She begins making essays,
发现这一个
trying
创
to
作
see the
方式的一个
sequence of the
开
images,
心的一个心态。
trying to get out from the idea of a perfect image or getting away from the idea of masterpiece. That's not what interests her.
他并不是执着于去创作一些很大有名的作品，但是这一些故事性的就对他来说很有意思。你看，这是另外一个一组的照片。他在画框上面做一些创作，在画画，用了一个支笔。这个笔其实是用于在工科的一些建筑学很专业的用的一个笔。那么它首先是在画框里面画一条线，那条线变成了一条真实的线。那条线呢也是在用马鬃毛来去做成的一条线。这是从二维世界的创作变为了三维空间的一个创作。那么这也是另外的一个作品啊。他在画一条线，那慢慢的它就变成了一个现实世界真实的线。这个作品呢也可以在我们这一次的展览上面看到。它就叫做可居住的绘画。那这个绘画呢是居住在这个这个艺术品里面。那么这个绘画的本身呢，就成为了一个载体，让这个艺术家能够居住在里面。同样的意思呢，它就跟油彩，这个就是油彩方面的一个创作。那么其实呢，这个创作看上去很简单。一开始用着这个画刷呢去做油画的一些动作，它油上一些蓝色的颜料，然后就慢慢扩大这个油彩的范围。之后呢，他就用手来去推这个蓝色的板块，推走。你看到，其实这是像一个电影式的一个叙述方式，来呈现艺术的一个作品。那么开始呢，就变成了比较复杂的一个创作了。因为在构思上面可能呈现的方式很简单，但是构思的话十分的复杂。像这个创作呢，你看到，其实这是个镜像的一个作品。阿梅拉海曼达他是在这幅画的里面是一个镜像的一个反应，但是呢，油彩呢是画在这个图片，就是这个作品的上面的。就是空间上面的一些反馈。尽管呢，这个身体是镜像的反馈的一个部分，就是它跟三维世界的一个真实世界的一个互动。因为这看上去。其实就只有观众能够看到这个作品的呈现。拍摄这个作品的艺术家是没有办法看到我们所看到的一个作品的呈现的方式的。那么这个作品呢，它就作为他认为是一个在身体上面的一个融入的升华的部分。你看到，他把这个油彩，蓝色的油彩融入到自己身体里面，他拥抱这个蓝色。慢慢的，这个蓝色就好像被它吸收了一样，就变得比较透明。他把蓝色就吃到有一些作品上面，他会吃到这个蓝色的颜料，然后眼泪方面呢就变成了一个蓝色。有一些作品呢，他就把
and the result of the action of the painter doing the painting. So she's everything inside her body.
那么这一切就是融在了他的身体上面的。
Helena Almeida made a series of works that we have in the show, a very good
另外一
representation
个
of
作
those
品
works.
呢，在这个展览上面的呈现呢，很重要，就是叫聆听我，
That is a very,
感
very
受我，
important series
看
of
着我。
works. So she basically what she does is she has photos of
他会怎
herself
么去创作呢？他就有一个他自己
with
的一
the
个
words
照片，或者是他身体
of,
部分的一个
which in
照片。
Portuguese means here,
他
meaning
在
hear
嘴
me.
唇上面是写
And
着
so
一个
she
oval， 就
has
是
the
聆
word
听我
of
的葡文，
written
葡
on
萄
her
牙语。
lips.
他就
But
把
as
这个
it is
oval 这
written
个
on
字
her lips,
写在他的
it
嘴
seems
唇上面。
that she
就
was
像呢
sealing her lips.
他把
So if the
嘴
lips
巴
were sealed,
两
you
两
could not hear
两
anything,
块的
right?
嘴唇缝上一样。
She makes for the first time one video.
他
And
第
in
一
this
次
video,
做这
she's
个
on the
影
other
片
side
呢，
of a canvas or a
他
paper.
就
You don't understand really well.
在
And
一
she
个
first
画
she
布
has the
的
mouth, and then she puts a
一侧
pencil in the mouth, and from the other side she writes over. But between
那么
her and
他
us, there is this surface.
哎
So it's
会
about
跑
this
到那个
impossibility.
画布的另外一侧，但是在中间就写
And
oval，
the
聆听
the
我的一
other
个字眼。另外一个
so
作
she
品呢
has，
我们看到
filmy, and in
是
the filmy
感受
series,
我的
there
一
is
个
something
系
between
列。
her and someone else. There is
那么
always
是
an object that
Helena Almeida 跟
impeaches,
另外一个
that
人
doesn't
的
allow
一个
the
互动，
direct contact of touch between the two persons.
就是
Here
反映
is a kind of
不
it's
能够
like the
有真
breath
实的一
becomes
个感受对方的一个体
solid,
验。
or it looks like a membrane
你看
going from one
这
body
一
to
个
the other.
布的
And it's the first time that
就
her
是
husband,
把
Artur Rosa,
他
appears
现实化了，
in
呈
the
现在这
photos.
一个画面
He
上面
was。the
另外一
person
个
that
人呢，
was
其实就是他的丈夫
making the
阿卜
click of the camera.
Hossa。
It was not Helena Almeida that made the click, it was Artur. And here he appears in front of the camera too, in the images.
那么
In
在
this
这
piece,
个图片上面，
this is a very strong image
你
that
可以
you
看
have
到
there.
就是
Also in the show
oval，
it has hear
就是
me.
聆听我的一个意
And
思。
here it's also the filmy
这是
series.
另外一个感受
So
我的一个系列的
someone
作
is
品。
passing to another person
就是
a
有人
block of wood.
把
So there
一
is no
块木
contact
呢，
between people.
传
It's-
到另
so
外一个人
the
的
title
手
of
上。
each work, it's always about the opposite of what you see.
所以呢，这个
And you have
题
all
目
you
标
have
题
one
其实
more
跟它表现的意
work.
思是相反的。
Not this one. This one is, I'm going to talk about it. You have one more
聆
work
听我并
that
不
is
能
called Hear
聆
Me.
听，
Sorry, See Me.
这个是
And the See Me word
看着我的一个
is
系列。
nothing that you can see. It's a sound.
那么其实
it's a
你是
sound
没有办法有看着那个
It's
概
the
念的，
sound
而
of
是
a
传达
pencil
那个声
on a
音。
paper
那个
making a
声音呢
drawing. A
是
very
有
magnified sound
用一
of
支
the
笔
pencil
在这
on the
纸
paper.
上面画画，
It is
就
not in the
听着
exhibition,
那个声音，
but those
并
of
不是
you
看。
who will use the audio guides
但如
in
果
the section
有
about
人呢
this
听着那
this
一个
series of words, you'll have a sample, a 30-second sample of the sound of the piece See Me. So the See Me is the sound of a drawing, which of course cannot be seen, just heard. The other topic that arrives to her work in the beginning of the 80s is this very precise relation to space between, you know already, being in front or behind the canvas was a subject that was important. Here is being inside or outside. And so this is a game inside, with a hand inside a paper cube. From this series on, she'll make a series of works called Studies for Two Spaces that we could not bring because they were occupied in the show. Studies for Two Spaces. It's always one hand going from one space to another, like one hand on top of a table,
就是
going to the
像是
abyss
这
that
一
is
幅
the
画是
end
从
of the
一
table,
个桌子的
or
一边
one
一
hand
边一
going
侧，
inside a glove,
然
going
后
from
或者
one
是
space
手
to
呢进
another,
去
or
这
here
块布的
inside
里面，
or outside a cube. And at the same time,
或
she
者是
made these
进入那
artist
个
books. These books
方体
are
里面。
sculptures, little sculptures that
另外一个
cross
作品呢，
the
就是
material
一个
drawings that she
小
has
的
been
雕
that
塑
she
的
has
作
been
品，
doing with the books. And at the
就
same
是来
time, she
模拟
begins
一
to
个
do
书
this
的
series of
形
works
象。
that you have in the show, called The House, and The House is a title of several works from Helena Almeida. And she begins to be really obsessed with this idea of the house, of inhabiting. You had this idea in painting, inhabited painting, or in drawing, inhabited drawing. But here you begin to have really a physical approach to the idea of inhabiting a space. And as you see, she's mixing painting with photography.
那它就跟拍照呢艺术创作融合在一起。
But at the same time, she begins to magnify the photographs.
他从这个作品开始呢，就可以看到他在放大
as it existed in 1980. 1980, you had photographies from the Swiss artist called Urs Luti.
You
had photographies from German artists called Jürgen Klauke that were big, but it was not at all common to have photographies that were 1.70 meters high. And she began doing those photographies, sometimes painting. I was with Margarida trying to understand how this was done because I've never seen her doing this work. And we were trying to get to the conclusion. So she was making the photo of herself with this black dress. Then she was painting on top of the photography. Then she was rephotographing the photography to make these big works. And in this case, the work begins to be more and more abstract. Here, the only bodily thing that you see is the hand.
你唯一能够看得清楚身体的部位，就只是他右边的那只手。
And she begins to make the depictions of gestures, doing drawings using
有很多那些手势方面的互动的一些创作。
Gutai was a very important Japanese artistic group during the 70s, the 50s. And the Gutai group was very much in the origin of performance in Japan. They themselves were very influenced by the work of Jackson Pollock. And Helena, I know that she was very much aware to the work of this group, Gutai, as she was also very much aware of contemporary dance. She was very attentive to the work of Pina Bausch, the German choreographer. She was also very attentive to the work, the postmodern dance of Trisha Brown and of Simone Forti. So she was very curious and attentive about dance, much more about dance than performance, strictly performance. And so she made this series of drawings. The curious thing is that the hands here are life-size. When you see the drawings, and you can see them in the exhibition, when you see the drawings, and if you put, well, ladies, if you do that, for me, my hands are too big for that. But if you try to put your hand in front of the photography, you see that they are rigorously life-size. So the problem of scale is beginning to be a really important thing for her. So this is an image of the installation upstairs. Let's not lose time with that because you'll see it for yourself. Here, it's another drawing that is made with this black pigment that she gathers or moves away, always in this sequence that allows the gesture to have an expression. And suddenly she begins to magnify the images to a scale that is much bigger than human scale. And so when she gets to this point, you don't have an artist that is dealing with photography as representation. You have an artist that is dealing with photography as an ambience, as a space. She invites us to go inside that space and to deal with the scale of these bodies that are bigger than real, bigger than life size, and our own body. And I invite you to go to the show and sit and have this experience. As happens, like the continuation of the drawings also gets magnified. This is called the wave, and of course it has a reference to the idea of a sea wave. Or these images called inside me, dentro de mí, where she has these little mirrors that kind of engulf the space to the inside of the artist's body. Then there is a series that is crucial in the show called
这个在这个展览里面也是非常的重要的。
It's a series that has a story.
这个系
You
列
have
是
these
有它的故
photos
事
of these
你
legs
看到这些
of a
照
woman
片
using high
你看
heels.
到这个女性与她
You
们的
have
高跟鞋
little drawings
你看到有这些的图画
like that are preparatory drawings. Here you have you can
这些的
see
图
around the
画
drawings and the photos of the legs.
与这些的照
And
片是有一
this
定的
this
关联
series
性
is called Seduzir, and you have a video, and the video is really
系
important.
列
So
呢
I urge you to
里
see the
面
video
是有
because
一
the
个
video
影
the
片
video is
这个影片也
it's the
非常
second
重
time she
要
makes a
的
video. She
这
had
也
done
是
a video
她
in
第二次制片
1980 as
在这
we've
个
seen, and
1980
now she
年的
makes
时
the second
代
time a video in 2004,
她
and she
第
made it
二
for an
次的
exhibition.
制片
That video.
为了这
As a
个
matter of
展
fact, the
览
video is a preparatory work
这个
for it's part of her working process.
制
At the
片
time,
呢也是
Helena
她
Almeida
创作
was
过程
working
的一个
like
部
this.
分
She was doing those drawings that you see in the
她
vitrines in the
是
middle,
一直的在
like
制作这
these
些
drawings, these little
作
drawings.
作品
She didn't even consider these drawings real artworks. She said they were studies.
并
They
不
were
觉得
like
这些
preparation.
是一些
It was
艺术
part of the
品
process.
她觉得
Then
这
she
些
would
是
make the
一种
videos.
过
And
程
in the video, as you will see,
在这
there
个
is
影
Helena
片里面你
Almeida
会看
in
到
her
她
studio.
这
She's
艺术
listening to
家
Baroque music that
她
she always
去
likes to
倾
listen to
听
Baroque
一
music.
一
Sometimes
些
she
摇
could
滚乐
also listen to Tom Waits. She loved Tom
她
Waits.
也很喜欢这
Or
个
she
风
could
味
listen
的
to
摇滚乐
Talking Heads. Yes, she loved Talking Heads.
她也很
And
喜
so,
欢说话的猫
but usually Baroque music was perhaps what was more playing in the studio,
在
and
这
she
个
would
巴
try
洛克的
some
这个音乐
positions,
里
some
面
bodily positions, some gestures.
我们
In
看
this
到一
case,
些
she
的
was
手
using a
势
stole,
或身体的
and she
姿
needs
势
to, and she's using high heels.
她
In
也
her daily life,
运
she
用她
never
的这
used
个
high
高
heels.
跟鞋
She was using high heels because all these
为什么
series
要运用
to
呢？
seduce,
是因为
it's
这
an
些
homage
的
to her sister,
符号
Manuela Almeida, who had passed away
因为
very
她也
recently
已
at the
经
time.
去世了
And。Manuela Almeida went through a very
这个
painful disease, a cancer.
海伦娜
but she
她有
maintained
一个
until the last
让她非
moment.
常痛苦的疾
The,
病，
she was a very
那个故事
a
其实
very
是她
proud
的妹
woman
妹
of
呢，
herself, so
在去
she
世
meant
以
that she
前呢
dressed very well.
有一个
She,
很严重的
opposite
癌症的
to
一个痛
Helena
楚，
Almeida,
所以
Manuela
其实这
Almeida
一系列的创作
usually
呢
had
是
was
跟
in
她
high
妹妹的
heels,
去世的
and she
故事是有
maintained
关的
that。very proud self
那么她的妹
preservation
妹呢，
until
尽
the
管
end.
在疾
And
病
so
的
Helena
折磨底
Almeida,
下，
all
还
this
是很
work
有
is about that,
活得很有
about
尊严。
someone that is in deep pain, is suffering,
那
and
他所
suffering to
探索
maintain
的
an
探索的一个
absolute
主体，
dignity
就是
and pride
在
in her
人
feminine
在
condition.
痛苦、
this
极度
work is
痛
very
苦底
touching.
下，怎么去保持
The,
一个
the,
尊
the,
严
the？video tells
所以
the
在
story.
那
If you see
个
the video, you'll
影
understand the
片上
drama
面，你就可以
that
看到
that
他
is happening.
对于这一个
This is a
故
story
事，
that
这
Helena
小故
Almeida
事要怎
told
么
it.
从
She
艺术的
didn't
角
told
度
in the
上面
beginning
呈
when she
现
made
出
the
来。
show, but she told it afterwards. And this is a part of another series we just
那
had this
这
image
呢，
called
就
I am
这一
Here.
个
In this
是另外一
image
个
gave
系
the
列的
name
作品，就叫
of
我在这
the
儿，
exhibition.
在场。
This is another part of the Seduzir
这
series
是
that is around the
诱
same space.
诱
You'll
惑
see
系
in the
列
show
的一
the
些
thing
作
of
品。
the feet. And this is one
这是另外一
very,
套
very
的
important
作
new
品，
turn
它是
on
很
Helena
重要
Almeida's work
的
when Artur
一
Rosa
个
appears
作
again
品。
in front of the image.
那么你看到她丈
She's
夫
not only
都
behind
Rosa
photographic, she's
是在这
again
里
in
同
front of
框
the image with
出
her.
现的，她
And
并不是在
this,
镜头的后面，而是
the-
在作品的呈
you
现。
know, you have the story of this
这上
woman
面
artist that spent 50 years photographing herself.
那么
And of
从
course,
这个创作上
during
面，你
those
可以
50
看
years, the
到，
body changes a lot. We all
一个女性的艺术家，她
Most
有
of
接
you
近
don't have
50
the
年的一个
experience
创作的
of
生涯，
having
她的
50 years
身
of
体
changes.
逐渐的老去，有
Yeah, but
不一
believe
样的
me,
变
50
化。
years is a long time, and we change a lot in 50
那么
years. We have rhythm.
相信我，其实我们每个人如果
We have
经历了
wrinkles.
50年的一个
We have
岁月的话，
marks.
我们有很多不同的
Our
变化
skin。gets
可能
stained.
我们的
We walk
皮
in a
肤啊
different
变得
way.
比较松弛，我们会有不同
We
的
are
斑
different.，
我们就已经是
And
跟以
this
前不
passage
一
of
样的
time, there
人
is。a French philosopher
随着
that
这个
I
时间的
like
推
very
移
much, called Michel
过
Serres,
去，
who says that the skin,
其中一个艺
is the
术
map
家
of all
有
our life.
讲过，
every wrinkle that we have,
我们
it's the
的
mark of something
皮肤是岁月会留下痕迹的，每一个瞬间，每一个过度的一个 活动都会在这个皮肤上面留下痕迹，或者是你煮饭的时候啊，会对这皮肤有任何的影响，都会在皮肤上面有体现的。
Let me introduce you that subject. I'm almost finishing.
让我再继续把我以下的重点讲完，差不多就完结了。那么
Not like, for example, Marina Abramovic.
她是有一个不一样的拍摄方式的，跟其他艺术家不一样。
Or like Rebecca Horn.
跟 Rebecca Horn 也是不一样的，一个德国艺术家。在2004年，Helena Almeida 跟这个德国艺术家碰面，但是他们的拍摄风格是不一样的。他们两个其实都是表演型的艺术家。像是刚刚讲的一些艺术家，他们是裸体的一个拍摄的一个表演艺术。就是跟 Almeida 是不一样的，他从来不会拍裸体。
Which means that she could continue photographing her body until the end of her life with no problem. And that is interesting to think that, because that gave Helena Almeida a huge freedom in the depiction of her image.
这一个创作的方式就把她的一个创作的空间打开来了。
Of a marriage with Artur Rosa.
她与 Artur Rosa 她丈夫的一个婚姻，其实也长达半个世纪。
Was nearly 90 at the time.
在90年代开始，他们结婚。
They had a very strong partnership.
他们有很强的一个合作的关系。
Now it's the two of them. It's called The Embrace, o abraço.
你可以看到这个作品叫做拥抱。
At the same time, they are competing for a tiny space.
他们呢，在照片上面有拥抱着这个动作，也是同时在竞争这个那个小小的空间，所以是又帮助帮助大家，但是又同时在这个关系上面竞争。其实这个作品呢，很能触动人，特别是来反映在一个很小的地方要怎么去帮助对方，但是同时又有一个竞争的关系，怎么底下怎么帮助对方？这是另外一个作品。
A video and 3 photos. The video is of this couple.
他这个作品呢有图像也有影片。他们两位呢是用一些线绑着这个脚的，他们会走前面，然后往后走那一种。他们会一直在这个影片上面走前，然后退后。从皮肤上面也看到，其实他们并不年轻。直到一直走，重复这个动作，直到看着谁会先跌倒。
She called me, come to my studio because I made a video for the show. Come and see what it is.
其实呢，之前在这一个作品还没面世之前呢，Helena Almeida让我去他的工作室来看这个作品。对于我来说，其实我第一次看很震撼。对于我来说，我也跟他讲，这个作品，很能打动我。他的表述的意象很强烈。那么 Helena Almeida 他说，其实从这个作品，我们的想要知道到底我跟 Offer 谁会先跌倒。
All the big themes of art, you have the relation with space, the relation with the space that we have.
从这些作品上面，你可以看到他在探索与空间的关系，与另外一个物体的一些关系，把这些关系都呈现在作品上面，或者是把身体人与身体的关系，人与身体与时间 流逝年老方面的关系。那么这是我们展览的最后一个作品，它是在2019年在他去世那一年面世的。他的整个身体呢是用一个黑色的袋子包裹着的。
It's called Dentro de mim, inside me,
它就叫做在我之内。它是一直在探索他以往的一些艺術主題。
The others were very different. You saw the inside me was her feet with the mirrors in her feet. That was the series called Inside Me.
作品也是叫做在我之内，但是不一样的是有一个镜子在他的脚的旁边。
And so what she puts in front of you is a woman.
那么她想呈现的就是一位女性，她的头部是蒙着的，你并没有办法看到她表面上面、表情上面是表达什么，没有办法窥探的。那么她想呈现的永远都是他内心世界没有办法被窥探的。
With these last images becomes we are here, we the audience are here.
那么我们是观众，我们在场。
We don't end of the show, the end of the life.
我们
know that her life was about to end, of course.
也没有。
But in the end,
对
we
于
still
他
don't
整
know
个
what is inside.
作品呢，留给我们观众一个开放式的一个想象的空间。那么这个蒙着双眼就蒙着头的那个身躯到底是在等待什么？是一个开放性的一个命题。
Thank you.
那么在之后的展览上面，大家也可以看到更多的这一些作品。谢谢沙古教授的一个精彩分享。那么我们之后会进入我们的那个在场的单元，我们会邀请沙海花女士上台呢，与沙鲁教授来一个对话。那么沙海花女士呢是一个活跃于亚洲呢，还有欧洲的策展人，还有研究人员。她现在是圣洛士大学的一个访问教授，长期关注女性艺术还有跨文化对话的一个实践。我们现在欢迎他上台。
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor, for the fantastic lecture. Thank you all for being here. When looking to the work of Helena Almeida, besides everything you have spoken about as major topics within the art field, namely time, space, action, I see in the corpus of work of Helena Almeida love. I see love for art, love for painting, love for the other, the husband, love for the sister as well. And that's also a major theme in the art field. Was she really concerned about the topic of love or the theme of love, or is this just a natural consequence of all the other topics that she approached?
前后之间的顺序的这个
Margarida, you read the interviews that are available with Helena Almeida. I know that you did.
我们在与他们的访谈
you know well that
你知道非常的清楚。
Helena Almeida didn't like to talk much about the reasons for her work. I don't think that I ever heard the word love from her mouth.
我没有听到她说到她的作品是有关于爱的。
Usually, in terms of when we we were talking about the work,
但是我们在探讨作品的时候，
ironical
它
than
是以一
anything
个
else.
讽刺的口吻，
The irony was a tool
这个
that
讽
was
刺
very important to Helena
是一
Almeida.
个
There are
工
other
具，
works
是
that
他所
if
运
we
用
were
的一个
looking
工
at
具
them, we could find this irony even in this very dramatic series called
在他的这个系列的作品里面，我们也看到这个譬如说是诱惑这个系列里面看到这个讽刺性的风格是在里面的。当他去伸展他的腿的时候，他非常的疲惫。这好像是有点困惑性的，我们不知道他这是不是因为一种戏剧性的张力，或者是他是确实是爱他的妹妹等等。
Love is a very important theme of art, and is
爱
present in several works
是非常的重要。
We find, although I didn't mention it,
虽然我们用描述性的语言来说，
the series with Artur Rosa, the love
在她与她丈夫的爱之间，
a global idea of
在以一个全面性的角度去看这个爱在场性等等。
So I agree with you.
所以我很同意你说的，爱在这个阿尔梅达的作品里面是非常的重要。
I never heard her mention.
但是我没有从她的口中听过这个字，我从来都没有听她口中所提及过这个字。
So I will now invite Professor Song and also Terence and Dilys for a conversation about the residence part of the show.
阿尔梅达的展览。
好，接下来我们有请宋振老师，是来自中国美术学院跨媒体艺术学院讲师，长期就是探索身体与空间的视觉。So thank you both for the meaningful exchange. We now move to the resonance segment, exploring how Almeida works.
接下来我们进入回响的单元，探讨阿尔梅达的艺术如何与东方语境对话。现在我仅邀请3位联合策展人上台。宋真老师，中国美术学院跨媒体艺术学院讲师，长期探索身体与空间的视觉。
禤广瑜
curator at the
Macao Museum of Art,
他是澳门艺术博物馆策展人，专注于诗学与哲学视觉的艺术研究，以及梁慧萍女士，她是澳门艺术家与澳门艺术博物馆策展人，她关注人文与社会科学的艺术实践。
Moderated by the Margarida Saraiva.
以及接下来的对话将由沙海花女士主持，有请各位上台，谢谢，感谢你们。
Professor Song, you have been with us from the beginning of this project. You articulated with the selection of the Chinese artists. I would like to know if you could share with us what was the rationale of that selection and how do you think that the works produced do relate with Helena Almeida?
选择的过程，还有您要怎么确保这些作品跟 Helena Almeida 的创作有一个共鸣。
首先特别感谢在场的所有的嘉宾啊，当然我也是非常荣幸的能够与这么强大、这么有活力的一支策展团队，就是以这个我们的主策展人Sardo教授，带领着我们的这个 Margarida， 还有 Dilys， 还有 Terence， 我们一起来做这么一个关于 阿尔梅达的展览。那么刚才的这个Margarida 的这个问题啊，其实是这个起源可以追溯的特别早，就是我因为我的身份既是艺术家，也是策展人。当然，还有一个更重要的身份是中国美术学院的教师。所以我在2013年的时候，在我的课堂有一个课程的名字叫做《身体的政治学》。那个时候呢，就开始讲述引用阿尔梅达的作品，作为课件，来给国内的一些学艺术的同学们做授课。那么就在这个过程中，其实当时只是因为拿到阿尔梅达的作品与这个伊夫蔡因的作品做一个对比，但是呢，这一次通过我们整个策展组的一个沟通，甚至是在整个这个过程中啊，我学到就是能够从那个萨多教授他的对于阿尔梅达的深入的理解的这个层面啊，更加明确的了解到，其实不只是我们通常意义上理解到的关于阿尔梅达创作中的身体、身份、空间这个角度，而更多的是从一个我当时在策展组提到的一个状态。这样的一个关键词入手的，所以也就是因为这样的一个理解的逐渐的深化，再加上早期的对于阿尔梅达的一些观察，才在整个的这1年多的准备时间中，首先是去不断的去访问国内的我的这些创作的同行，就是中国内地的。这些女性的艺术家，然后在这个过程中呢，也在他们的这个作品和近期的这些创作的转向中，去反复的思考他们与阿尔梅达的这类的创作的相近之处，或者说他们是如何从正面或者是从一个隐喻的角度去理解整个阿尔梅达的创作，也是在这个过程中选择了这3位艺术家。需要我来讲述整个展览那我简单为大家导览一下，在画面中我们看到的第一幅作品啊，这个是孙晓宇老师的作品，他也是一位这个艺术家，也是老师。那么，其实这件作品是有一个很有趣的插曲，这个我还比较感谢我们的另外一位策展人的坚持。我在策展的过程中是相对开放，尽量的能够留给艺术家很大的创作空间。当然，在整个违约的这个创作中啊，迪丽斯一直坚持的就是能够把杭州的元素引入到这个孙晓宇的作品当中。所以在这个整幅的作品中，能够看到这个影像，它既结合了杭州的街景，也结合了我们看到其中有和阿尔梅达相似的，向阿尔梅达致敬的这个手势的一些影像。另外呢，就是因为在这样的一个创作时代，我们不得不面对一个 AI 的侵袭，这也是作为孙晓宇他第一次在作品中引入了一些 AI 的元素，做了一个结合。它是一个对于他来说一个很大的挑战。接着我们看到的是他的相对的，因为我这面从中国内地所选择的艺术家，他是以两件作品相对应的来展示的。这件作品叫做《深化悬河》，他在探讨的是一方面他以致敬的方式使用了阿尔梅达所使用的这样的一个蓝色，就像教授萨多教授讲到。另外一点呢，他会在这个过程中啊，去探讨身体的这个流动性。那么在这个里面就会有以摄影的这个方式把他的身体和他所关注的这种整个运动流动物体所留下的遗迹，做了这样的一套摄影的作品。 在下面我们看到的就是更直接的一个对应。那么这个是高夫燕，他的这个作品呢，就像其实刚才萨杜教授讲到阿尔梅达的整个创作生涯中，在关注皮肤的这一点，我特别感同身受。那这也是整个作品中更加直接的正面面对这个阿尔梅达的一种对话方式。这个高夫燕他的创作，做艺术家高夫燕他的这个创作，首次的将，因为他作为一个摄影师，拍作品也将近拍了有30多年，在他的作品中从来没有出现过自己的皮肤。也是在整个这次的创作过程中，他开始把早期使用的关于田字格、关于中国文字的这样的一种创作方式和自己的身体做了结合。当我们去仔细去看，比如说像他进步的这张作品的时候，他其实是用田字格来定位他的那些在人生成长过程中的那些痕迹。那么这样的一个成长痕迹，在一定程度上，如果我们熟悉中文的话，其实有观众可能已经看到，哎，上面脖子上方的那个，哎，有一点像我们中国的米字，就是在写的那个。那么在他的这套作品中，也有很多这类的细节出现。再就是这样的一件作品，就是闵汉的2张绘画的作品。我刚刚也是在听萨杜教授的这个讲解的这个过程中，也是了解到，其实对于艺术创作者来说，对于我们每一个艺术创作者来说，用手去绘画是一个最直接的反馈。这也是在整件这次邀请的艺术家中比较少的直接用绘画的作品来体现。那么在这个里面，它其实更多的是一种隐喻式的对话，更多的是体现的一个女性艺术家，或者说一个女性对于空间尺度的把握。简单来说就是，如果我们从阿尔梅达的他对于作品个人身体与空间的一个感悟，能从他的作品中看到。那么从这样的绘画中，我们看到的是，比如说像这张大爆炸，以及下一张作品，这个只放了1张哈。OK， 那么他的另一件作品，我们可以看到的，它叫做《深渊》这个大章鱼的这件作品，我们可以看到，一个人对于整个空间，一方面是向上，升腾的，向上去求索的一种状态，一方面是向深海中求索。而在这个里头，它加入了很多中国传统的元素，也就制造了这样的一种空间混合的隐喻效果。这是我的这个部分的一个简单的介绍。
So it is a very simple introduction of the artist feature in this exhibition, especially from the China side.
Thank you so much, Professor Song. I would like to address a question also to Terence. Terence is one of the curators of the Macao Museum of Art, who engages with studies of Taoism. From that standpoint, he has a peculiar and particular view on the work of Helena Almeida and an interpretation that may shed some light in relation to how did the Chinese and Macao artists interpret the work of Helena Almeida?
像澳门还有内地的一些艺术家怎么样去延伸 Helena Almeida 的一些创作呢？我想要让你来分享一下。
我还是讲普通话，因为我是哲学的，我的哲学专业，以一个读哲学的人来看Helena Almeida的作品，
And my major is in philosophy, and I would like to share my perspective towards the Almeida's work.
我是特别喜欢研究现象学。
In particular, I would like to explore the phenomenology.
胡萨尔他认为，我们去研究哲学就是观察这个世界，
history,
回到事实本
studies
身
in the philosophy,
go back
and
to the
going,
things
which is
themselves.
going back to the things
这
itself.
是一个很出名的那个
This is
一个主张，就是我们要回到事实本身。
famous of his
然后呢，另外一
assertion.
个法国的哲学家
And
叫
there is an
梅洛庞蒂，
artist
他
Marie
又进一步的
Bondy,
解释，就
and
说
he further,
其实你
she
要回到
further
事实本
explained
身
that
之
we
前，
need to
你应
go
该先回
back
到身体本身
to
，go
things.
back to the body
You have to go
first.
back to the
为什么
body
呢？因
first
为
before you
我
go
们
back to
去
things.
了解这个世界，其实我们都需
Because
要我们
when
的肉
we
体，我们的
want to
身体，
know
我
about
们是
the
透过我们
world,
的身体
we know
去
the
感受这
world
个世界。
through the
我们想
body.
回到
We
事
want to
实
sense the
本身，
world.
事物本
We
身之前，我
want
们
to
先要观察
go
自己
back
身
to
体，
the
了解自己的
things,
身体是
but
怎
we
么
need
去
to
观察这
observe
个世
our
界的。
body, our world first.
所以，如果
So
你带着这种观念去看
If you
Helena
use
Almeida
this
的作
perspective
品的时
and
候，
to
你
further
会发现
explore
他
the
整
man's
个
work, you will
探索
realize
就
that
是
the
进行一
entire
种
of
哲学探
her
讨。你看
exploration
他初期就受那
means
个风
that
卡拉的那个影
in
响
her，initial
就
stage,
是对
she was
从一个
greatly
平面的
influenced
画布
by the
扩展到
spatial
立体的
partners
探索，
by
就突破
Fortuna.
绘画的平面性。
And she
然后他后
studied
来又
the
一开始用
service
身
of
体
the
来介入，
governors.
这个就
And then she
我
later
我
used
看
the
了一
body
些
to
文章，就实际上
intervene.
他是
And
受
I
到
have read through several
梅洛庞
articles,
蒂的影响。
and she has
他
been
他
influenced
就是
by
也是用
the
身体来
Fortunas very
绘
much.
做绘画，它本身
And she
也是
used
有
the
一个很
body
强的
as
那个哲
governors.
学
And
理念在
because
里面。
she has a
所以
very
他一直都
intense
认
philosophy
为他的
by
身
this
体，
use.
他的身体就是他的
And
画笔。
her
所以
body is
这也
exactly
是
the
贯穿了
governors.
他一生的
And which
那
is
个创作。
really going
这
through
是从
all
平面到
all
三
along
维，
of
这
her
是
life.
实际上在哲学来说，
And
这属
in
于
terms of
空间的探
philosophy,
索。
is a
空间
study
的
of
探索
space.
也就是现象学里
Explorations
面
of
最重
space.
要的一个
And， what
特别
is
是
important
对
in
于
this
梅洛
study
庞蒂的
is the Margarida
身体现象学来说是最重要的起点。
body's
所以
phenomenals
Helena
is an
Almeida
important
她
starting
是用她
point.
的身体做一
And
系列的探索。
Helena
然后
used
到了
the
后来
body， as
他
the
又
beginning to
透过一
explore
些许多
her
系列性的作品，刚
And
才
there are many
萨杜教
more
授所讲的
serious,
很多
just
一
as
系列
the
一系列
Professor
的作
Sardo
品。
has mentioned.
这个从哲学
She
来
has
看
a
呢，
lot
其
of
实
works,
它这个所
and
谓的
again
系
in the
列，它
perspective
整个
of
作品就是一
philosophy,
个时
through
间性的
her
延伸。
series,
它透过
series
空间的
that she
空间的
uses
探索之后
time，
它又
and
从空间
space
探索延伸到时间
to
探索，就
extend
形
it
成了
to
一系列
the
的作品。
time
到时候大家如果
exploration
去看
and
现场
to
看到那些
really
作品，非
combine
常震
into a
撼，是因
collection
为
of
它在
works.
空间上、在时间上做一个连接。
And
就
she
是
would
它
like
跟看电
to
影又
connect
不一样，
her
它是
time
一
and
幅幅
space
作品
just
就
as
是
you
放
watch
在
a
那里，就是
movie.
扩
You
展了整个
see
空间。比如
that
说我们看视频，
the
都
space
是
is
在
being
同一个空间
extended.
里面看
We
一些画
see
面在
that
变
we
出
have
现，
a
但是它
sitting in a space
把
and we
那
see
些
that there is
时
different
间性的东西
transformation
就是
happening
变成
here.
一个立体的东西，然后
And
就
it
并
then
列在一
becomes
起，然
very
后就扩大
dimensional
它的那
and then
个比例，
extended.
所以看起来就非常震撼。
Then
我特别
it
喜欢其中一
looks
件作品叫
a
无
really
题，
great
就是他手
surprise
上
to
画
us.
的一个红色的
And I really
我
like
当时
her
看到我
work.
我
For
在现场第
example,
一次
the
看到的
paint,
时候，在
the
展
paint
场
that she
他们
used.
还在布展，
And
我看到
on
的时候，我
that
几乎是
exhibition site, when
感动到
I
有点哭了的感觉，
view
因
her
为
work, I
我
am
站在那里
so
好像是
touched
进入一
by
个教堂，一个神圣的地
appreciating
方，
her
然后
works.
一个艺术家透过
Because
空间、
she's an
时间来
artist
探索一个
using
非
the
常
time and
严肃的问
space
题。
and
这个
to
效
really
果
want
是
to
非常
raise
震
this a
撼
very
大家
serious
有机会
thinking on
可以
this
特别去
issue.
欣赏一下那件作品。
And I hope to enjoy you,
然后
hope to invite you also to join
所
me
以
in that exhibition.
他的一生，如果我们
Throughout
从
her
从
work,
上帝的视角来
and
看
also
他
from
的
the
一生，
perspective
就是
of
一个
God,
完整的、很
that her
认真
life
的一个
is
哲学探讨。
very
透过他的
complete, and she had
艺术
a
作品
very
进行了
serious
一个很深
thinking
刻的
on the
艺术探
philosophy
讨，
and
然后就让
also
大
on the
众都来
topics about
都可以
life.
一起来很实在的去探讨一些
And I
很
hope
深刻的那个
that
哲学
to really also engage in this very serious philosophical talk through Professor Sardo and also our colleagues' exhibition, that we have a very wonderful exhibition space, and I would like to invite you all on this poetic and very moving exhibition tour, and I would like to ask you to also think about the philosophical questions here. And from a Taoist perspective in a Chinese context, and when we look at Almeida's work in such an aspect, I think this is what you can really pay attention to those points. Through body, we can discuss the philosophy and to think about the issue of life. Like Taoists, it is also having an echo towards the Taoist thinking. Our body is the universe, and the body is really corresponding to the universe, and we are in the correspondence with the universe. And there is a very strong rationale behind it. And like, for example, high heel, when she took on the high heel, actually what she wants to explore is not just the body, is what the high heel or what human was really torturing themselves by wearing the high heel. And so this is really a reflection. And when you see her uses her body to explore the life, the community, and really some serious topics in the universe. And I think it also has some a very strong echo in terms of Chinese philosophies. And I am very happy to have the exploration here. And in terms of expression, Almeida uses black to reflect on her work, and I feel like the black that she uses is pretty much like the Chinese ink, even though it is black ink, which looks very solemn, but it also very intense. And is very takes us into more thinking. And when we want to also respond to her work, like also Professor Ming Han, and in also his other video, we see that he also uses black and also blue, and blue means rationality, and red means passion. And the colors that he used is very restricting himself, and is also finding the same imagery expression also as you find in Chinese works. And when you especially view it on site, and I really feel that it has a very deep aesthetics values, and this is basically what I want to share with you. Thank you very much.